Welcome everyone to the Malvern Retreat House website. This is Tuesday, so we're going to be taking a look at the responsorial psalm. I always encourage people to read the entire psalm rather than just to reread parts of the psalm that we hear at Sunday Mass. The entire psalm is Psalm 116. It's not very long. It's broken up into different parts, so I would encourage you to read that. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring my Bible along, so I can't read the entire psalm. I'm just going to be reading what we heard at Mass on Sunday. So the response is, I will take the cup of salvation and call on the name of the Lord. Why don't we say that together? I will take the cup of salvation and call on the name of the Lord. How shall I make a return to the Lord? For all the good He has done for me. The cup of salvation I will take up. I will call upon the name of the Lord. I will take the cup of salvation and call on the name of the Lord. Precious in the eyes of the Lord is the death of His faithful ones. I am your servant, the son of your handmaid. You have loosed my bonds. I will take the cup of salvation and call on the name of the Lord. To you will I offer sacrifice of thanksgiving, and I will call upon the name of the Lord. My vows to the Lord I will pay in the presence of all His people. I will take the cup of salvation and call on the name of the Lord. There are three basic types of psalms in the Old Testament. I may have said this recently. If I had, sorry for repeating. One type of psalm is called a lament, where something terrible has happened to the psalmist and he's lamenting this. It could be the loss of a job, it could be the triumph of an enemy, it could be a bad harvest. Maybe he's speaking for the nation and the nation has lost a war. So the psalmist laments and hopes that God will intervene and turn around his situation. The second type of psalm is a thanksgiving. This is post-crisis. So a person has experienced something terrible or the nation has experienced something terrible, but they've been able to come through it. And now the psalmist gives thanks to God for His faithfulness. Now the word thanksgiving probably isn't a great word because it's not so much a thanksgiving psalm to God, it's really an opportunity for the psalmist to share with people what God has done and God's faithfulness to His loved ones. So we call it a psalm of thanksgiving, but it's really an opportunity to do some evangelizing. That's what this type of psalm is today. The psalmist was in a very bad situation. We're not quite sure what it was. It could be one of two things. We'll get to that in a minute, but we don't know. And God has rescued him, so he's giving thanks to God. The third type of psalm is just a hymn, where the psalmist expresses gratitude and joy and wonder for all that God has done. So, I will take the cup of salvation and call in the name of the Lord. What's all that about? Well, you probably know this. In ancient times, lots of times, wine would be poured into a chalice, or sometimes it was water or something like that. And then this special bowl or this special chalice would be emptied. And that was a way of sacrificing something precious to God. Because God had saved people, or sometimes they were looking for God's intervention. Well, that was called the cup of salvation, or the chalice of salvation. So, the psalmist is in the temple in Jerusalem, and he says, I will take the cup of salvation, and I will, honor God with this chalice of salvation. So I will take the cup of salvation and call upon the name of the Lord. But then he says, how shall I make a return to the Lord for all the good that He has done me? Like, it's impossible to repay God. Well, the cup of salvation I will take up. Ritually I will thank God. And I will call upon the name of the Lord. So just an interesting thing, there are actually two responses that are available for Sunday's liturgy. One was, I will take the cup of salvation and call in the name of the Lord, or it could just be the simple Alleluia. So that was another option. Now we go to the second verse. Precious in the eyes of the Lord is the death of his faithful ones. That does not mean that God delights in the death of his faithful ones. You know, precious or dear to me is the death of my faithful ones. Sometimes that's the way it's translated. No, it doesn't mean that God delights in it. It means just the opposite. That God is moved when people he loves die and when they pass away. So God is moved by the death of his faithful ones. I am your servant, the son of your handmaid. You have loosed my bonds. That's a hint at something that could have happened to the psalmist. He could have had some type of near-death experience or some type of an illness, and he was loosed from his bonds. A little later, he suggests that even when terrible things were happening and he was on the edge of despair, he didn't despair. And so God saved him from despair and hopelessness, and he might be offering thanks to God for that. Last one. To you will I offer sacrifice of thanksgiving, and I will call upon the name of the Lord. My vows to the Lord I will pay in the presence of all his people. So this psalmist had made vows to God. God, if you save me from this terrible situation, I vow or I pledge or I promise to do this and this and this and this for you. And the psalmist says, I'm going to be faithful to the vows that I made to God. So again, in the Connections program, there's an activity for people to do. Prayerfully reflect and journal on the responsorial psalm and pay special attention to how it may relate to your life. So do you need to give God thanksgiving for something he did for you? Do you need to share with others how God has helped you in your life? Do you have vows that you want to repay and be faithful to God? Anyway, do the second reading, pray it by yourself, and then if you have the time or if you have the book, maybe you can do some journaling on how it could relate to your life. God bless.